Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Congressman Peter DeFazio.
Yes, sir.
I could have talked, and I know I could talk loud enough for the group here, but in good part my speech is really intended for the cadets, because they are the future, and a lot of my remarks go to their future lives and their future mission in the military. It's an honor to be here today, and I want to thank all the cadets for having volunteered to serve in the military. I want to thank their family and friends for supporting that decision. I want to thank the members of the active military we have here today, and veterans who are in the crowd for their past service. You know, it's a time where many people are questioning the efficiency of some of the principal institutions of our democracy, and and I would say serving in Congress somewhat deservedly so. But the military at this point in our history stands tall and firm as an example of excellence and enjoys widespread confidence and trust of the American people. Now, that's not always been so. When I was commissioned 45 years ago, I was commissioned, we were told that we were not to wear our uniforms. We went to an undisclosed place on campus to have the ceremony. Only friends and family were to know where the commissioning ceremony would take place because of the controversy and the divisiveness in the nation raging over the war in Vietnam. My brother returned as a non-com special forces from Vietnam, and when he was notified of his after-service medal ceremony, again, he was told not to wear his uniform till he was on base. Our country was bitterly divided, and unfortunately and unfairly, the country and those who were particularly opposed to the war blamed the military and not those who actually were the ones who made the decision for that war, which would be our civilian leaders. Well, now, post 9/11, that's all changed. I've got to say, as a member of Congress, the hardest thing to do is to vote to send our young men and women to war. But post 9/11, the vote to go into Afghanistan was nearly unanimous in the Congress, and there isn't much that is unanimous these days. And obviously the support across the nation was phenomenal, as was the support of our allies, the first major NATO deployment into Afghanistan. Iraq became a much more divisive issue. I didn't vote for the Iraq mission. The country was somewhat divided, but no one blamed the military. We continued to honor the military for their selfless service both in Afghanistan and Iraq. Now we're out of Iraq in a military sense. We're in the midst of a dramatic drawdown in Afghanistan, although it's very probable that we'll deploy 1,000 Oregonians there this summer. So that is not yet concluded. But now we need to look to the future. What is the future mission for the military, and how should it be in the hierarchy of needs in times of difficult budgets in Washington, D.C. In order to get really some better perspective on this, I'm not an expert. I sat down this week and had a beer with a friend who's a former member of Congress. He's the immediate past president of the International Institute of Peace. But as a young man, he served as a non-com ranger in Vietnam and is in the Army Ranger Hall of Fame. I can't think of anyone much more qualified on the issues of war and peace than my friend Jim Marshall. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about what we saw for the future. He's on the Defense Review Panel, part of the Quadrennial Defense Review, and part of this will be things that he has submitted actually to the Quadrennial Defense Review as a look into the future. First, we talked a little bit about the history of the United States. We were not an isolationist power, but until the 1940s, we were Congress. Our country has followed a policy of deep global engagement and leadership. And this policy has been incredibly beneficial. And some who would change that, I think, have a very steep burden of proof. And I believe they're wrong. There are at least 5 interests that have prompted our deep global engagement in recent decades and argue for us to continue to be deeply involved in the future. And obviously, first and foremost is the defense of the American homeland. The information revolution combined with dramatic improvements in global communication transportation haven't only enhanced our prosperity and quality of life, they've given rise to greater global interdependence, but also to new transnational terrorist organizations, the widespread retail black market availability of increasingly lethal weapons, including nuclear weapons and the threat of nuclear weapons, cyber weapons, biological weapons, and our forward deployment of our military forces and deep global engagement greatly reduces the potential threat and or the use of those weapons against our homeland. So that, first and foremost, is a reason we must continue the engagement with a military second to none. Secondly, we are a nation that's a trading and traveling nation. We always have been, and our way of life and our prosperity have been enhanced by peaceful access to the global community. And in order to guarantee the air, sea, and space access for the United States of America and our citizens and our interests, we need a strong military. Then reasonable stability in key regions of the world. Peace is good. Everyone wants to enjoy peace, or most do. It's good economically, and it creates jobs and growth here at home. And a forward military presence of the United States, who is really of the great powers, formerly great powers, aspiring great powers, we are the only country who does not have an expansionist agenda, unlike Russia or potentially China into the future. And we can deter those expansionist or hegemonist agendas by those countries through our alliances with other countries, smaller countries, lesser countries, weaker countries, and the guarantees we provide. And we are also providing protection and promotion of an international order favorable to our interests and values. Quite early in post-World War II engagement strategy, we led the development of an international system, the United Nations and other institutions, in which concerts of nations, think NATO, work together on a broad range of issues to deter aggression, develop trade, partner in mutual concerns, determine protocols in various areas, navigation, peacekeeping, conciliating disputes. And we need to continue that role now more than ever in the 21st century. And think of Putin and the Ukraine, for instance, and the threats arising in Europe. And then finally, our beyond that and beyond a military presence and agenda is the support of global common goods, combating disease, responding to disasters, protecting the environment. It's more and more important in this century for nations to act together on behalf of values or objectives. We need to lessen regional polarization. And we, again, as the only non-expansionist global power, we can enhance those opportunities for other nations around the world. So I would argue that it is not a time for America we certainly have problems at home we need to deal with in terms of our economy and that, but we can do more than just deal with the problems at home more effectively and efficiently. We can continue our role in world leadership. And we're going to need you. We're going to need your incredible diversity of skills. I heard some incredible stories from some of your commanding officers about former OSU ROTC grads and the positions of leadership they have attained. It's an extraordinary record. The talents your leadership will bring and the challenges you'll have, I can't fully anticipate. No one here can fully anticipate today, but there will be unanticipated challenges. When Benjamin Franklin was leaving the Constitutional Convention, someone shouted at him, he said, "Dr. Franklin, what is it we have? Do we have a republic or do we have a monarchy?" And Benjamin Franklin said, "You have a republic if you can keep it." Now, it's my duty to deal with the civilian governance side and try and keep it. But it will be your duty to protect it against all enemies in a continuing dangerous world. And I know you're up to that challenge. So thank you again for your service. Congratulations.
Thank you, Congressman DeFazio.